Hello, here's your friendly Viking MtG. This time I'm going to talk about big news, well, somewhat big news. This is the new rotation, or new as I put it in quotes, because it's not that new, and well, some Pro Tour results and some ideas on that now. The biggest news I would say this time are is this rotation change, and it's a decision that at least for me and many other people came all of a sudden, especially after some comments that Wizards had made before. And well, the Pro Tour is just to see how the metagame is likely to look like now. And just as a spoiler warning, there won't be 32 Smuggler's Copters on every top 8 from now on, which is a good thing to be excited about. And so let's start with the new rotation first. In this case, on October 19th, this is yesterday as the time of the recording, on Wednesday, Iron Foresight published an article in which they declared that they will return to the old rotation. Reasons he mentions is that some people had a hard time to keep up with it, especially newer players and players that did take a break. I think there are many other reasons behind it. One of them being that many people stopped attending standard events because, well, the new rotation was kind of quick, and this caused some problems on getting cards, especially considering that some of the cards, well, you had less time to play with, at least in standard, no? And in which case, well, this obviously reflects in some losses and everything. But yes, I also think that they got a lot of feedback that there would be less people playing because a new deck was out of the question for some people at some point. I mean, I do agree that a quick rotation obviously doesn't help very much standard in itself, in the sense that most players won't be likely to make the investment if their deck is not going to hold for very long. But at the same time, I thought it was not a bad idea because this created lately very good Pro Tours that we could follow, and the changes in metagame were a little bit quicker, no? Such as the case of things like Collected Company, which it's a card I love, but it was already choking a little bit the standard metagame, just a little bit, luckily. But the thing is that the main product of Wizards at the end is standard, and elongated rotation always helped to keep the player base interested, no? And I think I felt it myself that I was not very willing to participate in the rotation in standard because, well, my deck would be worth less, and that my latest deck, the green-black one, I chose it mostly because first I wanted some of the cards for Modern later, but secondly also that well, it was at least a deck I would try to get the cards together, and it was and I very well knew that it would take a year for it to go away, because most of the cards were from Shadows of Innistrad, which gave me a longer lifespan. But in itself, I was not very excited about about playing too much standard lately. So I do understand that feeling, and why they had to revisit this rotation schedule that they had before. So we return to the old one. For those who know, who are not very new, usually we used to have the rotation around the time of the September release. No, usually we did have a core set before, but in this case, with no core set and with these two set blocks, well, now we're going to put two blocks in one big package. No, for example, here, this is the example from the website directly. We have Battle for Zendikar, Oath of the Gatewatch, and Shadows over Innistrad and Eldritch Moon together. So in this case, what will happen is that they will be packaged as one, let's say, block in the old-fashioned sense, And then we will have Kaladesh and Aether Revolt and Amonkhet and Loves, whatever the name of that set will be, and Ham and Eggs as one package together, no? And once we reach the set after X, we will just drop out of the first, I would say, block, even though it sounds a little bit repetitious, no? And this is something I was very used to anyway. It doesn't affect me as much, and honestly, I mean, I'm still not a big standard player, but now I can at least see why I would spend a little bit of money on my green-black deck and give it a little bit more of time, because from here on it can only get more cards until the rotation happens next year. Anyway, read the article because there are many other things that they will say about it, what I want to focus on a little bit more are on some questions I've been seeing on Twitter, social media, YouTube videos, and so on. For example, someone commented that there may be too many mechanics. I don't think so, because Kaladesh has shown me that they are trying to keep fewer mechanics per set so that the block can feel more cohesive. So I think that they will keep the low number of mechanics a little bit longer. What do we have now? We have energy. We have fabricate. We have. I'm thinking we have about 3 or 4, and they would only include 2 more in Aether Revolt in any case. So I don't think there will be a mechanic overload like it happened with, for example, Shadows over Innistrad Eldritch Moon, because they had to put everything together because it was planned as a 3-block set, a 3-set block, the other way around. So I don't think that will happen very much. What maybe worries me a little bit more is that before you had 3 sets per block plus a core set. So this way you could enjoy the things that the block was offering to you a little bit more. Now with this, for example, I see a downgrade for Ham and Eggs and for what's the name of Shadows over Innistrad and Eldritch Moon, because we will only enjoy this 6 months less than other sets that are on the rotation side. This is Battle for Zendikar and Kaladesh, but I don't think this will be too huge an issue. But we should check. Anyway, I don't think the mechanics will go up. Prices, well, I have this example of Gideon here. The prices will enter again a normal price range thing that we were used to when we had these yearly rotations. So I don't think this will be a big problem. I use Gideon as an example because he had a little price spike once the announcement was made. This price spike is obvious because many people were already wary of buying the card because they knew that there were only 5 months left before rotation would set in. So they were already stopping to buy this card, so there would be no problem. Most probably some of them, I won't say many people, were starting to sell the cards to take advantage that it still was worth something, But once they got the announcement, well, they stopped selling it, one, and secondly, some people felt more confident on buying this card, so this generates naturally a little spike. It's not a huge spike anyway, it was $4 or $5 or something like that, but it's natural, So the cards will have a much stabler price, maybe over a longer period of time, and they will drop again once we get closer to the next year rotation, So this is not a big thing. Building time, well, I mentioned this before, we have more time. We have more time to enjoy our cards. Standard looks a little bit more attractive this way. But where we will have problems is in the last 2 questions, Dominant cards and the solving of a format. Dominant cards, well, it's something like what happened with Collected Company, or like we had with Mono Black and Mono Blue Devotion back in the time of Theros, or with Siege Rhino, that these cards tended to dominate the format very much, and some people were getting tired, some people have been talking about things like more bannings for standard and stuff like that, and things that I think are a little bit of crazy talk. But yes, these dominant cards will not rotate as quickly as they did with the previous rotation. No, they will define the format again as they used to, and yes, we will have to get used that once we have, I don't know, mono white humans dominating the format, that we will have to bear with them for a year. Or Smuggler's Copter. Now Smuggler's Copter will now stay 6 months longer, which means that if it becomes a very important card in the future, that we will have to bear with it for a longer time. And this may feel tiresome to some people, but you get used to it very quickly, believe me. It's not like it will destroy the format as long as it is not Callblade and everything. I think we will have to live with that. I mean, we lived with Coco even though the rotation was shorter now, but this will make some Pro Tours less interesting because once you have that one card or those 2 or 3 cards that will dominate the metagame, you will not be able to get rid of it very quickly, no? And also this format solving is very important. This is what happened with devotion decks, no? The blue and the black devotion decks were technically the solving of the format of standard, and the Siege Rhino decks too, no? So in other words, yes, it will be standard will become stale again at some points, which was the thing they tried to solve with a quicker rotation. And well, enjoy it now, no? I mean, again, I'm not against it. I don't play much standard anyways, and I always look at my LGS for the local modern tournament always. I never pay attention to FNM and stuff like that, and I draft mainly, so for me this is not a huge issue personally, but for those who play standard, well, you will have to get used to this old idea. This is the price we pay, no? Either we get a quick rotation and we don't have to suffer cards for more than a year and a half, or we get a slow rotation where we can invest with more security, but then we will have to get used to these long dominant decks that will well define what we play for the next 2 years. No, so that's the big difference. No, so this is a balance between what is fresh, what is not fresh. Maybe something I could suggest, which is not precisely a quick rotation, but could be a little bit more like refreshing, could be that we made a rotation 2 times a year, but instead of rotating a set of 3 blocks, we could rotate a set of 4 blocks. I mean, I still think this is not an ideal solution, but definitely there are many other ideas we could try to bounce around, no? But I don't think Wizards will now be very happy to mess around with this. Now, the thing that that left me confused, no, is that a few weeks ago, and you can see that on episode 3 of Viking MtG Talkr, I had said, I was a little bit critical to Maro when he said, yes, the rotation was a success, the 18-month rotation was a success, because I said very clearly on that video, I would have waited another 1 or 2 years to see if it was really a success, and there you have. About 6 weeks later, they had to revert everything. So, whoops, no? So, yeah, I'm sorry, Maro, it was not a success, and you were celebrating a little bit too early, no? And I think Wizards should be more careful, especially the guys who work there, to celebrate something as a success until we have more data on it. And this is just what happened, no? I don't have exact data on my hand, but definitely Wizards had to revert the decision. Well, let's go to the Pro Tour now. Here I have the top 8. This time it was won by Shota Yasuka with Grixis Control, a beautiful deck, but a very difficult one to play on top of that. What I want to pay attention to is the variety of decks we had that were played. No, we had Jeskai Control with Carlos Romano, who came up to the end. No, Timur Aetherworks, Red-White Tokens, Blue-Red Spells, which is not very similar to Grixis Control when you pay attention. Red-White Vehicles and Mardu Vehicles, which is a variation, yes, but still very different, and White-Blue Flash. All 8 different decks. They are not as similar as they look, most of them, and they definitely have a lot of interesting propositions that could define the metagame from now on. No? First off, big congratulations to Shota Yasuka. And well, also to Carlos Romao for making it at the end. Both very interesting decks, and a big congratulations on both of them playing very quickly, because it was a control versus control mirror. And some people may think that this is tiresome, but that game was a blast, even though you had drag go situations for long periods of time, but they were defined in very important moments with these counter wars. No, so I think this looks very healthy, and I hope it stays that way. No, cards. I mean, the kinds of decks that were played in day one, for example, were things with like Team or Aetherworks, where we had the Aetherworks card. Making a huge splash. No, Black Green Delirium, for example, being one of the dominant decks too. Then we had a lot of other decks that were maybe not as dominant, but there were many options: Black Red Aggro, Red Green Energy. No, so it's not like we are suffering just aggro metagame. Even though aggro still looks good, but Timur Aetherworks is not precisely aggro either. No, and when they moved on to day two, we still had this big variance, and the changes in percentages were not that big, really. I think the one that lost the most was Black Green Delirium, by the way, which makes me a little bit sad, no? But still, there's a big representation, 30 decks in day two. This still speaks very well of these good decks, no? And if you look down, well, we have Jeskai Control as one of the least played decks, and still it won the top 8. So it's not like there is no opportunity. Anyway, in general, breakout cards that I saw was Aetherworks Marvel, which I mentioned a moment ago, which is a very interesting card that permitted this like a control-y deck, which you check your library from the top to the bottom and try to find an Eldrazi and cast it. Literally, the card says cast the card, so you get the effect of the Eldrazi plus the big body. No, and you just have to generate energy, and it's not that much energy either. We're talking about 6 energy, and with all these energy cards, it looks like energy can be played very well. Now you speak of energy. Well, the control decks that were on the top 8 did use a lot of it. No, Jeskai Control used a little bit of it, especially in Harnessed Lightning. No, which turned out to be a very important removal card, because you could generate energy with other cards, draw cards and everything, and then use that energy to kill the big creature that was facing you in front of you. So for example, Torrential Gearhulk was the breakout card, the big one, in the sense that it made a huge splash in the top 8 and helped Control to maintain a lot of relevance, and accordingly went up in price. Lastly, Smuggler's Copter is still prevalent, but it's not as dominant as it looked in SCG Indie. People were able to play around it. This time we had only 16 copies of Smuggler's Copter, and most probably it will still be played for aggro strategies. But in general, it doesn't look that bad. Yes, this may still be the Siege Rhino of this meta, but at least I mean, it's still the same. No, you still have many other options you can play, and you can compete to compete against. No? So in general, I think the metagame looks very good at the moment, now that Collected Company has gone, and let's see how it shapes up during the next months. We're talking now November, December, and then in January Aether Revolt would come in. So let's see how in January we get the adjustments to each one of these decks and how the other decks develop. No, but there's a lot of things you can play, a lot of things you can do, and they are all viable. And I like that very much. This will be an enjoyable season, at least until we see Amonkhet come out, and then we will have bigger changes. Well, anyway, I don't know what you think, be it on the something on the rotation. I don't know what you think about the top 8, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you're exasperated because Control is back, which makes me very happy, even though I am more aggro player than a Control player. But for me, it's important to have all 3 archetypes represented. I don't know. You just give your comment. I'll answer on it, and well, anyway, you know, the usual: comment, subscribe, everything. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next week. I have to check how the Commander spoilers are coming up. If they will be all spoiled on Friday, which I don't think. If they are not spoiled by Friday, well, I will start with my explanation of my video series I have planned. If not, I will speak about the spoilers first. There are a lot of news coming up at this moment, and I'm not very able to really touch the video series I want to start doing. But anyways, the videos are on the works anyway, so it's just a matter of when I will post them. Okay, well then, have a nice one, and I'll see you next week.